Hi, my name is Morndas, and welcome to The Prince and the Paper, where I stand here, talk about books, and try to validate my English degree. Before we begin, I would just like to say that these book bites, as I call them, are not designed to be plot summaries. As I talk, I'm assuming that you've either already read or are currently reading the book and just need a little bit of extra help with what I think are the four most important parts of literary analysis: setting, characters, themes, and symbols. If you're looking for a plot summary, you know where to go. To kick off this series, I thought we'd talk about what is perhaps the most famous American novel of all time, F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby takes place in 1922 in good old New York, New York. We spend some time in the city, but the bulk of this classism and champagne-soaked story takes place on Long Island. On the northern shore of the island, we've got the fashionable East Egg, where the established or old money families live. And then on the other side, there's West Egg, where we've got the newly wealthy. And in between East Egg and West Egg lies the Valley of Ashes, a region that foils both the eggs and the city through its poverty. But in this story, it makes no difference where you live, because these eggs are about to be scrambled. The Great Gatsby is one of those novels where the person narrating isn't actually the protagonist. The book is told through the eyes of Nick Carraway, a World War I veteran who moved to New York to learn the bond business, because that's what you do when it's 1922 and you're high off the fumes of the American dream. Surely nothing bad will happen to the stock market in the coming years. So the question remains, is Nick a reliable narrator, or does his judgment put a rose-colored lens on the events of this tale? Vote now on your phones. Next, we have Daisy and Tom Buchanan, residents of the intrepid Old Money East Egg. Daisy is Nick's cousin, and more importantly, the main motivation behind literally everything Gatsby does. Daisy, a wealthy socialite, is portrayed as capable of genuine love, but is overall received as superficial, someone who prefers materiality over loyalty, a quality that will shape the story's conclusion. Now, Tom Buchanan... Tom is a part-time athlete and a full-time trash can. He's brutish, imposing, and overtly racist. He can't quite seem to recapture the glory of his younger days, so he takes that unhappiness and farms it until it grows into a huge victim complex that folds into his hypocrisy. Nick even claims that because he achieved fame at such a young age, everything else after that has kind of seemed like an anticlimax, which is Fitzgerald's way of saying he peaked in high school. And truly, why work when you could play with your polo ponies and cheat on your wife all day? And lastly, we have our mysterious protagonist, Mr. J. Gatsby. Since the story is told through Nick's point of view, we spend most of the book not really knowing much about this guy. And who's to say that anything he says is actually true? Until the end, all we really know for sure is that he's wealthy, he throws some raging parties, and he's in love with Daisy. He is portrayed as deeply optimistic but wildly flawed, driven completely by the idea that if he could just have Daisy back, he'd finally be happy. And hey, we've all been there, right? Minus the sweet gothic mansion. Other important characters include George Wilson and his wife Myrtle, who is also Tom's mistress, and Jordan Baker, a friend of Daisy's who Nick also kind of dates. As you read this book, keep an eye on these characters and don't underestimate their importance to the plot. There are a lot of themes in The Great Gatsby, but I'm going to talk about what I think is the most important and overarching theme that Fitzgerald put into this story. And what's that, you may ask? It's the American dream, baby! Well, actually, it's more like the complete and utter disillusionment of this dream, and what could be argued as a prophecy for the Great Depression. Surely nothing bad will happen to the stock market in the coming years. In Fitzgerald's day, the idea of the American dream was based on the thought that anybody could achieve prosperity through determination and hard work, or the white picket fence model. However, Fitzgerald argues that this dream has been corrupted by the moral ambiguity of the 1920s, something that the characters in this story do a great job of demonstrating. From organized crime to Gatsby's parties to the clash between classes, everything in The Great Gatsby comes back to this theme. Like I said, there are many other themes in The Great Gatsby, such as gender, race, and crime, and I encourage all of you to further analyze these ideas and figure out their connection to Fitzgerald's argument. Ah yes, symbols. The ring on the finger, the wine in the cellar, the hills like white elephants. You get the idea. The Valley of Ashes is pretty self-explanatory. It is quite literally the physical manifestation of the moral deterioration that Fitzgerald argues has corrupted the idea of the American dream. It also serves as a stark contrast to the wealth and beauty of East and West Egg. The green light is a bit more complicated. On its own, it's just a light that sits at the end of the Buchanan's dock directly across the bay from Gatsby's. It is his reaching toward the light that turns it into a symbol of Gatsby's hopes and dreams, and by extension, the American dream. Like the green light, the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg are considered a symbol because a character has assigned value to it. In this case, that character is George Wilson, who looks at this giant billboard and thinks, you know who those eyes definitely belong to? God. The billboard looms over the whole valley, which, as we just discussed, symbolizes corruption. And when you put two and two together, it seems as though Fitzgerald is adding a religious commentary underneath the story. But then again, maybe it was just a billboard, maybe it's just a light, maybe it was all a dream. The cool thing about literature is that it's up for you to decide what you think the author's intentions are. And classic books like The Great Gatsby are no exception. So let me know your thoughts on Gatsby, and if you have a question about something that I didn't talk about, drop it in the comments below. Or if you want, you can find me on Twitter. I'm Morndas, and this has been The Prince and the Paper. See you next time, old sport.